talking with you about praying with art, ways to pray with art, how to use art in this sometimes challenging, often confusing, in life-giving form, a way of communicating with God called prayer. And so I work with young people, I work with children, and we often, we have the typical ways of saying prayer. You pray, or you kneel, or you say it around dinner, around the table, or at bedtime. And so what I would like to do is talk about how we can use art, use prayer with art, and let that be the prayer itself, and how you appreciate that. And so a little bit about who I am. I am an artist, and my grandmother's kitchen table is where I learned to pray, both with my words. We gathered around, we held hands, we talked about God, we talked about life, we held hands, we loved each other, we shared this meal around the table. And I often say it's my earliest memory of church. And so then when my grandmother passed away, I inherited her table, and it is where I now paint. And I remember late one evening, I was painting and I was using brushes, and I was frustrated. And I threw those brushes into the trash, and I squeezed some color out onto the canvas and began to put my hands in the paint. And it is the first time, I would say, that I experienced what I would call painting as prayer. And so from that moment on of creating art and looking at art, I have discovered that the best way I can pray is through art, through the creation of art, and through appreciating it. And luckily, where we live here in Houston, we have the museum district just down the road. And so I often spend my lunch hour and times like that praying with art. So what I want to do first, before I introduce this first painting that we're going to be talking about, I want to give you some ways of thinking about and ways of looking at art, and a way to sort of prepare yourself as you get ready. And so this is what I would encourage you to do. Make yourself comfortable. Don't worry if nothing comes to mind at first when you're looking at a painting or a sculpture. Trust in your own authority and intuition. Pay attention to your first impressions. Let your eyes wander. Your mind will try and make connections between elements of the work. Just enjoy it. Look at it. Take it in. Be aware of the surroundings. Don't try too hard to shut out what is going on around you. Maybe squeaky shoes on the museum floor. How do you feel? Pay attention to how your mind and your body respond. This might be in a subtle way. Does the art help you feel calm? Does it irritate you, excite you? Does it trigger memories? Share your finding. How do you feel about this artwork? Try and summarize your thoughts. And look again. And so that's looking at art, but then also, how do you enter into that painting, and how do you enter into that sculpture or walk around it and pray and use that as a way to pray? And so my first painting that I'm going to share with you is by a woman named Mary Proctor. Mary Proctor, those who know anything about this Florida-based artist are already aware that she began painting in the mid-1990s after a house fire killed her beloved grandmother, an aunt, and an uncle. Her husband, Tyrone, found her that night beneath a tree, wailing inconsolably as the rescue crew shoveled bones from the ash. He brought his wife home, watching helplessly as she spent the next month fasting, praying, and pleading for guidance on how to move forward in a life already scarred by what she calls heartbreaks. Paint the way Mary heard on the 30th day of fasting, and so she began. Taking 3 doors, Mary painted portraits of each of her lost family members. Doing so, she believed under the instruction of the Almighty. A few weeks later, after she put the doors like a memorial in her front yard on Woodville Highway on the outskirts of town, an agent, a critic, and curator, originally from Tallahassee, offered Mary $5,000 to take the doors back to her gallery in New York. So that's an example of a way to look at a painting or take a moment or take a tragedy, take a story in your life and enter into that in a prayerful and thoughtful way. And so this is the painting that I share with you.